This episode is brought to you by Meow Wolf Denver. Come creative, leave created. October is the Cosmic Howl at Meow Wolf Denver. Take our immersive experience and add a splash of strange enchantment with events, workshops, and other special surprises. Welcome spooky season with Adultiverse, Misfit Fete, only for the Grownly on October 2nd, featuring an artisan oddities market. Costumes are encouraged and you must be 21 or older. Learn more at meowwolf.com/cosmic-howl. That's meowwolf.com/cosmic-howl. This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. Pine Melon is the farmer's market delivered right to your doorstep. But this isn't just any grocery delivery service. Pine Melon connects with local farmers, ranchers, and producers, meaning you're supporting local agriculture with every order. Save time and skip a grocery trip by ordering online now at pinemelon.com. Plus, if you use code CityCastDenver, you get $75 off your first delivery. Again, use code CityCastDenver to save $75 on your first grocery order at pinemelon.com.
Today on CityCast Denver, it's Denver's funniest weekend of the year, with comedy nerds flocking to South Broadway for High Plains Comedy Fest, while Larry David and Peyton Manning talk about who knows what on stage at the Paramount Friday night. But amid the post-pandemic comedy boom, there's been a string of buzzy stand-up venues shutting down. So what gives? Denver Post reporter John Wenzel has been digging into this weird paradox, and he's on with me and stand-up comic Joshua Emerson to talk about comedy and real estate. Today is Thursday, September 19th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. So I've gathered you two here today because the comedy event of the year is happening this weekend. We can all agree. Paramount Theater, Friday night, true comedy legends in conversation. Larry David, Peyton Manning. Are you two going to be there? I'm getting blank stares right now. Do you all not know this is happening? I didn't know this was happening. I thought this was so funny. It was the same weekend as High Plains.
What's happening?
Peyton Manning, Broncos quarterback, Hall of Famer.
I know who he is. Okay. I know who both of them are.
They're just talking to each other.
So I did know about it. I wrote a news note when they announced it. I will not be going. I am baffled by the pairing. And I think it's weird that it's on the High Plains weekend. To be clear, it's not part of High Plains, but
anyway, they're both famous.
Comedy weekend. That's what we're here to celebrate. Let's get into the real stuff here. So, John, your headline this week was that 3 of the best places to see comedy in Denver announced this month that they're closing, despite what Comedy Works owner Wendy Curtis told me last week that her business is doing great. What's happening?
I think you're seeing smaller, more independent businesses get hit by the headwinds, the economic headwinds. All 3 of these places, 2 of them, to be clear, are just leaving Denver, and one wants to restart. So the 3 places are Denver Comedy Underground, which is run by comic Ben Bryant. That was in the basement of the Althea Center on Capitol Hill, and that brought in, as Joshua can tell you, some great national comics. People taped specials there. The audiences were receptive. They got kicked out by Althea Center, so he's looking for a new place. Very expensive to find one. Mutiny Information Cafe is moving from Denver to Inglewood. They are one of the venues for High Plains Comedy Fest this weekend, and they got priced out, essentially. They also host all kinds of other stuff, as a lot of your listeners may know. And then the final one is Wide Right, which is a ballpark neighborhood bar and stage that hosts comedy, karaoke, drag, all this stuff. And they were super supportive of the comedy scene over the past, I think 4 years since they opened. And they are not reopening. They're going to close in December. So taken as a whole, it's not the best look when you have an event in town this weekend that is meant to puts a spotlight on the Denver comedy scene. And, maybe some of these comics coming in from out of town don't even know or care about it. But, and it's not going to topple the Denver comedy scene by any means. I spoke to Ben Kronberg, who runs the Denver Comedy Lounge, and he was like, this happens. It's the churn. Places come and go. But I think we're staggered a little bit at the moment. We lost 3 pretty good stages.
And that's what I want to talk about is this weird dichotomy between comedy seeming to be quite popular and doing well. Like Comedy Underground, I talked to Ben Bryant a couple of weeks ago. He said they were only growing. They had expanded to Thursdays. They were doing 3 nights a week. They were doing some shows upstairs in the big, the church hall, selling out 450 tickets. Like Comedy Works is crushing it right now. Joshua, what does this moment feel like to you as a stand-up?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things about Denver comedy, what makes Denver comedy so great, is that our Denver comedy audiences are well trained. And so a lot of different places, you'll go to, I don't know, Seattle, they have a good portion of the population has not gone to even one comedy show, or if they have gone to comedy shows, only been at a club. Whereas we have such a strong independent scene. I guarantee you, if you look up in your neighborhood, there's a comedy show that happens, like, it might be a monthly at a brewery, but it's all over the place. We have rotating taps. We have Ratio and Infinite Monkey Theorem that are weekly up in Rhino. And so there's just so many times to go see comedy and understand the value of comedy. Because I'll tell you this much, comedy shows are fun. It's one of those things where these people are really good at understanding how to make you laugh, how to bring you in to the performance, make you feel comfortable, and then make you laugh. And you leave having a good time because that's a fun thing to do. And we have enough producers that have learned how to do that well, that we just consistently have people that, have gone to, 5, 10 comedy shows here in Denver. And I think the strong independent scene also sort of speaks to that churn of why comics aren't necessarily as worried when you see all 3 of these are kind of a blow, Wide Right. They have a weekly open mic. You should definitely go see it while they're still, because they're open through December. And so the weekly open mic on Wednesdays, I don't want to say it's a shit show, but it's the largest open mic, and it's a huge social gathering place. It's like the watering hole for stand-up. And it's funny because it's, late at night, 10 p.m., and that's when comics are socializing, sort of just catching up on the gossip of the week. You're like, oh, usually they did on social media.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
so if you want to see stand-up comics being a little bit catty, being a little bit jealous of each other,
and get some good wings, in the process. Mutiny sucks. Mutiny's great. It sucks that they're closing.
Yeah.
And I just that place, just being able to stand up in a bookstore, I'm always going to miss that, and probably going to continue a little bit, I think, in Englewood, right? Isn't that the plan?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But this point you're making, Joshua, about the audiences being well trained, that's really interesting, because when I was reading your piece on this, John, I was thinking, like, what is unique about comedy's relationship with real estate? Denver has such a topsy-turvy real estate market right now. Is comedy some kind of canary in the coal mine for real estate? Or is the same comedy lover going to see a show in the basement of a church in Capitol Hill and going to Comedy Works and going to a brewery? John, how do you feel about where those things come together?
I mean, I think it's like any independent artistic, concern. They meaning artists and creative people, typically young people, typically working class. They move into neighborhoods and they make them cool, and then they get priced out. That's what happened, everywhere around town. And I think comedy is one of those things. It moves in with other things. It finds opportunities. It finds nooks and crannies. If you're in a space and you're expecting comedy, that's all you need. That's the vibe, as you're expecting comedy. So, the Squire Lounge, Lion's Lair, those were early examples of places like Wide Right where comics hang out and get together and hang out in the back and watch each other at open mics and showcases. And yeah, there's just not a ton of those places. Now it's breweries. Now it's once a week or once a month things in basements. And that's great. But to answer your question, they're basically looking for places where they can fit. And if they have to pay some kind of overhead or lease or cut to the venue that's, prohibitive, they're not going to survive. And Comedy Works survives because, like Joshua said, they've trained people. They just like to have comedy done to them, as Patton Oswalt once said. They're not going to see a specific comic like you do at a concert. They just want comedy. And they know Comedy Works and Denver Improv, A-rooms, as they call them, are consistent and reliable.
The Comedy Works brand itself is what gets people out, you're saying?
Exactly.
That's interesting. So that gets me to a quote from Wendy Curtis. I mentioned that I talked to her last week. She's a longtime owner of Comedy Works, nationally renowned. She was telling me how often Joe Rogan talks about her on his podcast, which I'm not aware of, but I thought that was interesting. So the quote she told me, Joshua, and again, this gets to the real estate question, is she says, I was asking her about like the downtown is dead narrative. And she told me, you have to understand, I don't depend on anybody else for my business. People don't go downtown to a bar and then spontaneously come to Comedy Works. It's the opposite. People plan on seeing a comic, then go to restaurants or bars after. I don't need places around me to do business. I like it, but I don't need it. What do you think about that?
I think she's exactly right. Comedy Works specifically, not only do they have trained audiences, it's the perfect place to do comedy because it's underground, it's claustrophobic, it's tied up in there. It's very easy because, laughter is contagious. And so when you get it nice and tight like that, the easier it is to, one person just has to laugh and then it'll just spread. And because of how claustrophobic is in there, you get these roaring crowds. And so, so Comedy Works is its own thing, I think, and that's
it's just the longevity, the power of the brand.
I think that the best way to look at it, so like Comedy Works versus like Denver Comedy Underground or Denver Comedy Lounge, and sort of like Denver Comedy Lounge, they've done something very good. They partnered with Colorado Sake Company, so they have alcohol
because they operate out of the back of that company.
Exactly, and as a part of it too. They have alcohol. They have a full kitchen. Denver Comedy Underground, they didn't really have. They had like a catering company or something to get around the alcohol part, and then they gave out free pizza as a part of it. And so they understood sort of that issue, and they sort of came up with their own solution to it. But in terms of like longevity, like when you are sort of relying like on the Althea Center to be cool, sometimes there's that could always just go away when you're counting on the goodwill of other organizations.
The precarity of it.
Yeah.
If you're doing a kind of a punk rock thing in a space that's maybe not, designed for performance.
Right.
Anyway,
But yeah, because the Colorado Sake Company is making money off of every comedy show. And it's in their best interest to continue to have Denver Comedy Lounge to be as successful as possible.
Yeah, it's like in the Denver scene, I think like Joshua said, or Kronberg, the guy who runs the lounge told me, we're stronger than just Comedy Works. Comedy Works is an amazing jewel. They are the jewel in our crown. But, you mentioned Joe Rogan. There was an article in The Atlantic yesterday about how Joe Rogan is remaking Austin by, because he has a club there, he performs constantly, and he's got the most popular podcast on Spotify. And it's like all these bro influencers, men's rights, people are moving there because of him. That seems very unlikely to happen in Denver, as I wrote in my Denver Post piece, because we're more diverse than that. What attracts people here is comedy with a capital C, not one particular person, not, Josh Blue or Adam Caton Holland or these other people who headline nationally.
This episode is brought to you by the What the Buff podcast. Are you sick and tired of getting your football analysis from a bunch of stuffy old men? What the Buff is the CU football podcast for the frat bros, the girlies, and the gays. It's hosted by sorority girl Adair, who comes in each week with 2 pages of stats, actual sports reporter Lincoln, who just learned what a pick six is last week, and token straight guy Trey, the only one who can actually throw a football. I trust the gays. Lincoln, that means you. Second, I trust the girlies. Third, I trust guys, I guess. Straight guys. I promise, these are the takes you want on Coach Prime and the whole Sanders family sports entertainment empire. Join the gang each week for their semi-expert and fully hilarious analysis of each game and the chaos that inevitably ensues. Find What the Buff on any of your favorite podcast listening platforms.
CityCast Denver is brought to you by LifeSurge, a one-day live and in-person experience coming to Denver on Saturday, September 21st. LifeSurge is where local Christians gather to learn about growing their financial impact. This all-day event starts at 8:30 a.m. and will feature nationally renowned speakers, musicians, and business leaders like Tim Tebow, the 2-time national football champion, Nick Vujicic, the world's #1 motivational speaker, Elizabeth Hasselbeck, TV personality and show host, pastor author Craig Groeschel, and Marcus Lemonis, the star of CNBC's The Prophet. Music will be provided by the Grammy-nominated Christian worship collective Bethel Music. The Magnus Arena has known inspiration, but nothing like this. A LifeSurge event is a must-see, and tickets are available exclusively at lifesurge.com/Denver. That's lifesurge.com/Denver.
This episode is brought to you by the Denver Botanic Gardens Maze Run. This year, explore their 7-acre corn maze at Chatfield Farms in Littleton, featuring a Colorado wildlife theme. The maze is open Fridays through Sundays from September 20th to October 27th. I've never done a corn maze. Are they scary? There's fun for all ages, with tricky twists, a mini maze for kids, and even an escape room. Plus, barrel train rides are included with children's tickets. I can do the corn maze then if it's not scary with my 3-year-old. Fall time for children. What's more fun than that? He'll love this. Indulge in some delicious fall treats like funnel cakes, corn dogs, freshly squeezed lemonade, kettle corn, and roasted nuts. Tickets must be purchased in advance by visiting botanicgardens.org. Remember, no tickets are available on site, so grab them now at botanicgardens.org.
This kind of gets me back to the question of real estate too, and the unique aspect of Denver, because we have this one big room, Comedy Works, but then we have all these other, we have the churn beneath it. It maybe, do we need that second venue? Do we need that competition up in that A room level for this scene to mature and to support more top flight stand-up comics that could attract this industry that is the bro influencers, or whatever the Denver version of that would be?
So there's the Denver Improv, and I don't know if they're quite competition for Comedy Works because they really go after different markets.
Yeah.
It's what's called like an urban room out there. What Denver Improv has started to do, and what Comedy Works has started to do, is have independent shows in the venue. And I think that's a way to sort of take some of the success of the independent scene, sort of people building their own markets, building their own marketing strategies, and being able to put it in. And I really don't think there's a reason that Comedy Works shouldn't be 7 nights a week. And then we just sort of fill in those rap dates with independent comedy shows. And that way you can go to Comedy Works every night, or Denver Improv every night of the week.
Well, and Wendy's really insistent about that over the years. And I think she helps set a tone. On the one hand, she is supportive. She's not trying to be the exclusive, zero-sum comedy purveyor. She helped support the Grolics as they were coming up and before they had their sitcom on True TV. And all those guys are still based here, But she's also insistent upon the fact that it's like you have to hit a certain level. And that's sort of irrespective, or I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. That has nothing to do with like the content of their comedy. That's if you can bring out audiences and you're making those people in that room in that moment laugh consistently and pack the club, she'll put you on. It doesn't matter what you're joking about, And she's had people protest outside the club when she had TJ Miller on after his sexual assault allegations. She's had people praise them for, having LGBTQ and, progressive radical comics, but also, pro-police comics and things like that. So that's one thing about Denver is if you're good enough, it doesn't really matter. And maybe Joshua can add some context to this, but she's like, if you hit that level, you hit that level.
Yeah.
And hitting that level is like having the following to fill the room.
To fill the room, you get on the list, you move up the list to be, and there's a lot of locals who've become headliners at Comedy Works, and that's like, that's a sterling thing on your resume.
Yeah, and it's more like there is a part of if you're good enough, you have to go, but it's like, can you sell enough? Is the bigger thing.
Yeah, because it's a 2-drink minimum. Because that's the other part of this that's real estate related. It's like, we're not 2-drink minimum, 2-item minimum. Yeah. And I was talking to Ben Bryant, and he was like, I think one of the things that we did that was so successful is we had this deal that emphasized the value. It's a $20 ticket, and you get a free drink and pizza, versus Comedy Works, 2-item minimum. And some of those items are really expensive. You go with a date, you're going to end up paying $150, $200.
Ben Bryant's booking was also fantastic. He brought in people before Comedy Works that were sort of in that level of starting to break, starting to bust, and they and they're funny. They're so funny. That's the problem, is that right now we're in a comedy boom, and there's this like upper class middle before you really get famous, before you really start making money, so you're grinding on the road. That's who you really want to see live right now. Like, you go see Tom Segura live at Ball Arena, I guarantee you that's not going to be that great of a show. It's just sort of the idea of seeing a celebrity in live and in person.
He's not as hungry as some
Exactly.
people, and you can sense that hunger because comics are vibe curators, and when they give off a vibe of comics, you can tell when they have that passion and commitment, even if they've done that bit 100 times before and honed that language, the audience can tell when someone is committed. It's clear. And in fact, I think that's something Joshua has said to me before in interviews for Denver Post articles is, that comes across.
And that was something I really felt at the Denver Comedy Underground too, is that whole venue just like oozed like passion and commitment. Everything about it said, we want this room to be the place for comedy right now.
Yeah, Ben loves comedy, and he puts his whole self into it. And it's pretty clear when you went down there to the Denver Comedy Underground.
Such a sad ending for that place. I hope they find a new place. Ben told me that he's looking for a space that could fit 200 to 250 people on weekends, ideally near Cap Hill. So listeners, if you know a place such as that, I would be happy to put you in touch with him. I know he's looking right now. They've got tons of momentum. I can't imagine anyone not wanting to be associated with this right now. It seemed like a very successful operation and popular. But anyway, so let's end with a recommendation. So we're talking about this energy, this hunger. Like, you two know better than anyone. Where are the spaces? Who are the local comics? Like, maybe a recommendation from each of you. One thing that people could go to see and laugh.
Yeah, I can start. Dude IDK Studios. It's north of City Park. Basically, Nick Holmby, he's been taking photos and videos for comics for forever. He's sort of got a storefront now, and they've been able to pack it out. I think it seats about 80. So, and when it's full, it's so loud because it is a sort of shotgun style. It is sort of a BYOB sort of situation. But the other thing about it is that the lighting and also the filming of it is beautiful. So you'll see like Hannah Jones' new material shows are there. Old Dogs, which is Elon Stribling, BK Sherrod, and Sammy. They do their show there. David Bory did his special there. So yeah, Dude IDK Studios are doing really good work. You should check out a show. They have shows every week.
John, how about you?
Yeah, so I would say, we talked about it, but Denver Comedy Lounge, they're just consistently good. They have good names. It's a mix of locals. I think mostly locals, but some nationals. There's a circuit now going from Fort Collins to, at least Colorado Springs for comics. You can go up and down. You can play different places. And Denver Comedy Lounge is one of those places. You don't need to be a Comedy Works headliner. And much like Dude IDK, which is also great, I totally agree with Joshua's rec there. There's a high level there. You don't have to have a lot of money to operate at a high level, whether that's production values, the quality of the performance. These are not amateur things. You don't have to sit there and cringe unless you really, really hate their material. But yeah, highly recommend. It's in the back of Colorado Sake Company in Rhino.
I'm going to co-sign that one. And now that the Comedy Underground is temporarily gone, that's my current favorite place.
Great sake too.
It's just a fun night out. You do table service, you get a little sushi, you get a sake delivered to your table, sit up back in the high tops. You're never going to find me close to the stage in the crowd work zone.
I'll be there September 28th if you guys want to come in. See, I'm working on my New Faces set, so laugh so I don't cry.
All right, John, Joshua, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Brah!
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Larry David and Peyton Manning about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then. My recs for going to High Plains. No. I don't. My rec would be to stop at Pie Hole. That's my rec. Pie Hole for a slice and a cookie.